Discerning Hearts presents In Search of the Still Point with Dr. Regis Martin. In episode 16, Dr. Martin reflects on knowing who we are, the example of St. Thomas More.
There once lived a terribly absent-minded fellow who every morning would forget where he had left his shoes and trousers the night before, which of course made him late for everything. So one day a friend gave him the following advice. Don't try and remember anything. Just write it all down the day before, which he thereupon did, jotting down such details as, my shoes are under the chair, my shirt and my trousers are on the chair, and I am in my bed. Well, he slept wonderfully that night, and the next morning was lucky enough to find the piece of paper. Quick now, he exclaimed. Where's the shirt and trousers? Ah, yes, on the chair. And the shoes? There they were, under the chair. Why, he'd practically put everything on in a shot, which left him feeling pretty spiffy. But then his eyes fell upon the last item on the list, and he was at once filled with horror to find that he wasn't, in fact, in his bed. He wasn't even under the bed. And so, in a terrible frenzy, he began looking all over the house, becoming ever more confused and depressed in his blind and desperate search for himself, reduced in the most pathetic way to asking over and over, and I, where am I? It's a bit like waking up in the middle of a slum, surrounded by toxic fumes and unfriendly neighbors, when you could have sworn you'd gone to bed the night before, nestled amid the purple majesty of the mountains. A bit off-putting, I should think. But isn't this, in fact, the basic question that confronts us all? The question of identity, of knowing who we are, where we come from, where we are going. Living in a world without any fixed point, where gender fluidity has become all the rage, it becomes rather a toss-up, having to determine who or what anyone is. Once upon a time, it was when Harry met Sally, but now it's become when Harry became Sally, which can be terribly unsettling if you happen to be the real Sally. Unless there is agreement on the matter, and the matter is rooted in a reality independent of the self, then the question of identity becomes hopelessly subjective. Human beings, nothing more than a random concatenation of atoms, which you and I are free to arrange and manipulate as we please. How far we have come from the character of Sir Thomas More, who not only possessed a clear sense of himself, but was prepared to die rather than betray the man he knew himself to be. He certainly knew where he began and left off. As Robert Bolt tells us in A Man for All Seasons, More knew the precise area of himself which he could yield to the encroachments of his enemies, and what to the encroachments of those he loved. It was a substantial area in both cases, for More had a proper sense of fear and was a busy lover. But as Bolt tells us, at length More was asked to retreat from that final area, where he located his very self. And there this supple, humorous, unassuming, and sophisticated person, set like metal, was overtaken by an absolutely primitive rigor and could no more be budged than a cliff. In other words, for all that More loved life and did not wish to have it taken from him, there was yet something in himself without which his life had no meaning, and when that was denied, he was able to lay hold of his own death. to become, as Dr. Johnson tells us, the person of the greatest virtue England ever produced, and to be sure, a saint of the Catholic Church. Thanks for listening. This is Regis Martin in search of the still point.
You've been listening to Dr. Regis Martin in search of the still point. For more episodes in this series, visit discerninghearts.com, or you can find it in our free Discerning Hearts app or on many other streaming platforms. Discerning Hearts is a 501c3 nonprofit Catholic apostolate dedicated to evangelization and spiritual formation through the use of new media. To learn how you can support our mission, visit discerninghearts.com.